Good evening, everyone. We can see our numbers growing here in the participant list. So we will get started in just a minute. We'll give more people time to get logged in here.
We forgot our music, Becky. Too much to think about.
We sure did. We've got all of our panelists.
That's right.
Most important.
We'll give it another minute or so, and then we will get started, everybody. All right. Well, it's just people are sort of joining us, but I think in light of everybody's time, we're going to go ahead and get started. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to College Palooza 2022. We are super excited to get this kicked off on the first day of February. I am Amy Belstra. I am the post-secondary counselor at Libertyville High School, and I'm joined by my colleague.
And I'm Becky Bolito, the post-secondary counselor at Vernon Hills High School.
Yeah, and you can see we have 8 panelists with us tonight. We are really, not 8, 6, there's 8 of us total, 6 panelists, and we are really excited to have them introduce themselves to you. But before we do that, we wanted to do a public service announcement and just kind of let you know what's coming up with College Palooza in the next few weeks. So we have another 3 webinars coming up. College Palooza is our chance to really share some information with juniors, sophomores, and parents. And I think tonight is going to be an excellent kickoff just to get us going. But next week is also a really big one. We have Eric Anderson and Maddie Steiner of Compass Prep coming to talk to you guys about college admission testing. There's a lot going on in this area right now. College Board just made a huge announcement that sort of rocked everybody's world last week that they will be going digital with their testing. It's not going to affect any of you guys, unfortunately, but it is a big change coming. So they're going to address that, but certainly how you should approach testing in our new test optional world. That will be next Tuesday, again at 6:30 p.m.
I would also throw in there that if you as a family are feeling overwhelmed or stressed at all by the idea of, you know, SAT, ACT, you maybe heard rumblings of test optional, this is a presentation that will actually make you feel less anxious.
Absolutely.
So I would definitely recommend delving in, starting with this.
Yeah, it's an excellent presentation. So we're excited to have them back. The week after that, we are really excited to have Annie Kramer and Sasha Teamy. They are both, this is our Girl Power Week. Annie and Sasha are both heads of the admission and enrollment management divisions at their universities. Annie's at Drake University in Iowa. Sasha is at Indiana University. So 2 different institutions, and 2 different sizes and 2 different processes in terms of how they review applications. So we're really excited to have them share, how they read applications, how they look at all the different aspects of it, from transcripts and maybe test scores to letters of recommendation, lists of activities, essays, all of that, and how it all works together and how they review it. This was honestly one of our best sessions last year. I'm going to just put that out there, and we just really enjoyed it. So we're excited for this one. We hope you can join us for that. And then finally, our last one is writing the college essay with Angie Cooksey of Bradley University. She's also director of admission there. And this is always a popular College Palooza webinar for us, because it's the thing that honestly stresses students out the most about the application process. And talking about it even now at this point in junior year, our hope is to allay some fears, kind of give you some pointers on how to start thinking about it, not how to start writing it yet. You're not quite at that point, but definitely how to think about it. So those three, you can register for any of these at this bit.ly if you want to pull out your phones right now and take a photo of that, or you can certainly go back to the emails that both Becky and I have sent out. We'll send them every week with just a reminder to register, but if you want to do that now, you can do it through this bit.ly. We also wanted to remind you that there are some bonus webinars out there. If you joined us last year for College Palooza, Peter Van Buskirk was our keynote speaker. He kicked it off for us. We love Peter. He's awesome. And he is doing national webinars right now for students and parents. He did one last week that was excellent. And the next one will be next week. It actually comes the night after ours. And if you register for either of these, they will send you a copy of the recording, even if you can't attend live. So it's a really nice deal. The admission game, Peter has come to do that for D128 in the past. It's a chance to sort of sit on the admission committee and read applications and determine who you would admit and who you wouldn't. It's excellent. I would highly recommend that. And then college admissions in 2022 and beyond, what to expect. This is a really good look at how the admission world has sort of changed because of the pandemic, because of test optional, because of all the different things that are happening right now in the admission world. And just to try to give you some context as you go into your junior or senior year next year. So again, you can register for either of those at the website listed there. You can take a picture of this, and of course, we'll continue to send out that information to you. All right, so we are ready to introduce our panelists. I'll do LHS, you do Vernon Hills. How about that?
Sounds good.
I am really excited to introduce to you guys Jasmine Gamino, Astrid Mazzino, Michael Kirkonis. These are three fabulous students from Libertyville. And Becky, why don't you do yours?
And from Vernon Hills, we have Erin Kim, Layla Morgan, and Ben Ravenscraft.
Yeah. So we wanted to kick off College Palooza this year with our seniors. Let's face it, these are the guys you really should be hearing from, right? And each of these, we carefully chose each of these students because they're each sort of representing some of the different paths that our students choose when they leave Vernon Hills and Libertyville. They don't just all go off to do college necessarily. Some do, some don't. And it's really about finding what is the right path for you. So we're excited to have these guys share some of their stories, sort of some of their reasoning, some of what they went through in this process. So we hope you enjoy it. And Becky and I are treating this very much like a fireside chat. We're all just going to sit around and talk, basically. So we hope you enjoy the conversation. The Q&A will be active. If you do have questions, we'll try to moderate that. And certainly if we have time at the end, we will address those questions. But we also want to be cognizant of everybody's time. So we're hoping to wrap this up, around 7:30-ish. So, all right. Do you want to take away the PowerPoint and we will have...
Oh, yeah, good call. Okay, hold on. A little rusty here. All right, let's stop screen sharing.
All right, there they are. Awesome.
Okay, yes.
So I think, Erin, you were going to tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yes. Hi, everyone. My name is Erin. I'm actually not a senior. I graduated Vernon Hills in the class of 21, so last May. I am currently on a gap year in Germany, so it is 1:42 a.m. With a program called the Congress Bundestag Youth Exchange, and I plan to start in the fall at the University of Michigan.
Can you talk a little bit, Erin, just really quickly about like how you found that program? We had a student at LHS do that as well. And what it's like, what you're learning while you're over there.
So the program CBYX, or Congress Bundestag Youth Exchange, is actually fully funded by the US government. So it is completely free for students who get accepted into the program, which is a huge reason why I decided to take this gap year, because normally when people think of gap years, people think, oh, it's really expensive, especially if you do want to travel. But there are tons of opportunities if your child or if you are interested in taking a gap year, for you to find stipendiums and scholarships that will fully fund it. So that's a great thing about the program. And for CBYX specifically, it's 10 months abroad in Germany. And you can stay with the host family, and it's a cultural exchange and language immersion. So it's a really great program. And I'm sure Mrs. Bolito and the CRC have information on gap years that are fully funded if that is something that you are interested in. But you can also just do a quick Google search for these programs because there are tons like them.
Awesome. Thanks, Erin. I want to throw out there that Erin emailed me in August saying that she would be happy to be a resource to anyone who was looking to do a gap year. So here she is many months later, serving as a panelist, and 1 a.m. in the morning where she is. But thanks, Erin. And I think, Michael, you were going to go next.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Michael. I'm a senior at LHS. I played varsity soccer for 3 years, and I'm gonna start playing water polo. And then a year ago, I was getting help from Mrs. Balstra because we were worried that I wasn't actually gonna be able to go to a good level of schooling because I had poor grades throughout high school. But I had no clue what I was gonna major in or how to get help or all that, and we basically worked things out to fit my preferences, and I ended up getting accepted into 7 out of 9 of the colleges I applied to, and I've now narrowed my colleges down to 3. So
Oh, tell us what 3. You haven't told me this yet, so fill me in. Fill all of us in.
Iowa State, Kansas, or University of Kansas, and Western Kentucky University.
Nice job. Very cool. That's awesome. Awesome. All right. Who wants to go next? Let's do somebody from Vernon Hills next. We'll switch it off there. Benjamin, you want to go next?
Yeah, so my name is Ben. I'm currently a senior at Vernon Hills High School. After I graduate this spring, starting next August, I'm actually going to be attending Western Welding Academy, which is a trade school out in Wyoming. And that's a 6-month program to get various different welding certifications.
Do you have a specific type of welding that you're hoping to do?
Yeah, so the school I'm going to specifically is a pipe welding school. So that's all you do is just pipes. So it'll end up working out where I get jobs on like the oil pipeline or working in oil refineries or chemical power plants and things like that.
Have they shared with you, Ben, like what the starting salary or starting hourly pay or salary might be for somebody that pursues that?
So all the research I've done, the students who graduate this program that I'm going through on average make anywhere between $2,000 and $6,000 a week after taxes. So it pays pretty well.
All right, everybody's going to change their mind totally about what they're going to do after high school. They're like, yeah, pipe welding. That looks really interesting.
Yeah.
That's amazing. And I have a quick question too. Tell us where your school is in Wyoming. Like, what is it close to?
It's in Gillette, Wyoming, so it's really northeast Wyoming. It's about
Yeah.
2 hours south of Montana.
Got it. So you were out there, man. That's
Yeah.
awesome. Very cool. All right. Who's next? How about Astrid? Do you want to do it?
Yeah, so hi, I'm a senior at LHS, and currently I'm looking at private liberal arts colleges, although I guess right now I'm taking pipe welding into consideration. But I applied early decision 1 to the first school that I was really interested in, which was Carleton in Minnesota. Unfortunately, I didn't get in, but you take your chances. So now I'm applying early decision 2 to another private liberal arts college, and then regular decision. And those are to Dickinson College and Gettysburg College, both smaller schools. You may or may not have heard of them. But yeah, I'm really excited.
Very cool. Very cool. Awesome. All right. Layla.
Okay. Hi, my name's Layla. I'm a senior at VHS. In total, I plan on majoring in biomedical engineering. The school is still up in the air right now. I applied to like a total of like 24 schools, mainly because I'm very indecisive. And a lot of times, like the schools I was picking largely was based on my major that I intended on. And then later on ended up being based on whether or not I wanted to pursue my sport in college. But right now, the only thing that I'm most concerned about is my major, while my sport is still kind of a second hand thought, but that's mainly what I plan on pursuing.
Do you have like a top list at this point? Because biomeds, that's
I do have a top 3,
yeah.
so that's really good because at one point I did not. So
Yeah, out of 24 to get it down to 3, that's a big process, isn't it? It takes a while to do that.
it did.
That's awesome. All right. All right. Jasmine.
Hello, everyone. I am a senior at Libertyville High School. I'll be actually the first generation to attend college. And I applied to College of Lake County to get my associate's degree in nursing, and then transfer to public university and get my bachelor's degree in postpartum nurse.
And Jasmine, tell them what you're doing right now through Tech Campus.
Okay, so I'm currently attending Tech Campus, which is located in Grace Lake, part of College of Lake County, and they have like a lot of good programs such as welding, certified nursing assistant, which I'm currently attending, and they give you actually dual credits towards CLC to help you through any classes you may want to take, which is a really good program. I recommend a lot of high schools attend there. It's only like 2 hours a day, and like you learn a lot of stuff, and it's like actually good to know if what you're planning to pursue in life, if it's actually like the right one for you.
Excellent plug for Tech Campus. Thank you. That was good. All right. So we'll kind of alternate with questions here, but do a little thinking back, you guys. Think where you were a year ago. So you guys were all juniors, and think about what was going on in the world right about then. Share with folks, and we just do this sort of, there's no formal structure here, but just share with folks kind of where you were in your head and your process a year ago, and where you were sort of starting the process of thinking about what's going to come next, what's going to be my option after high school.
And Layla, I think I'll put you on the spot because you mentioned that like you started thinking, directing your search because of sports, right? And now you've kind of shifted. So can you talk about that?
Sure. I started actually quite early. For me, I like when I am worried about something, I hyper focus. So at this time, I was planning essays. I was like, what am I gonna do? but mainly I tried to narrow down like the majors that I was planning on. And so that pertained to mainly engineering and biology. So with that, I kind of had a discussion with my parents what I was thinking about doing. And so I found colleges that really fit that. And overall, I started, like I said, like really early planning on what I was thinking about, but I didn't necessarily like have a set in stone plan, but I just kind of made a list of things that I wanted to look at, things that I valued a lot, and that's kind of what pertained to my college search. So I think that was very helpful in the end. But probably not like more than like 10 or 15 schools, but it's kind of up to the person and like the path they wish to go down. So
Layla, what's your sport? I think I'm curious, and I'm sure others are too.
I run track and field.
Okay. Do you have a specific event that you do?
Yeah, so I triple jump.
Dude, okay, yeah, that's serious. Okay. That's hard to find too. Colleges like triple jumpers, right?
Yeah, it's yeah.
Yeah.
To say
Yeah.
the least.
All right. Awesome. How about the rest of you? Where anybody else want to share kind of where they were in their thought process last year?
Yeah, I can go. Well, last year I was a senior, and I think when you're 17 or 16 and you're kind of deciding what you want to do for the rest of your life, it's really daunting. And so, of course, like I had absolutely no idea what I wanted to do, which is completely okay if you feel that way. If your child feels that way, I think a lot of people do. But yeah, so what I wanted was to take a gap year. I always knew that I wanted to do that, especially because I had a lot of friends who were already in college who had to pay full tuition for online classes. I didn't really know what the situation was going to be in a year, but I knew that I didn't want that to be me. And so I just wanted to take a year off to kind of really solidify what I wanted to major in, as well as just travel and kind of just soak up the time that I had. And so if those reasons sound appealing to you, maybe a gap year is for you, but I just want to caution that if you do plan on taking a gap year, to really make sure that there is structure to the program and not just a year off, which is something that me and my parents really valued when I was looking for gap year programs, just because a structured program with like an itinerary or like, I don't know, not just taking a year off would be really beneficial if you plan to go to school after your gap year. And so, yeah, my head was in like, I had no idea what I was going to do, but it's fine because it will work out eventually.
Did your parents ever worry, Erin, like, oh my gosh, she's going to take a gap year and then she's never going to go to college? Did you ever hear that from them or any other adults in your life?
Well, as a person, I'm very driven. And so I definitely wanted to go back to school. And I knew that after my gap year. And so I don't think that was ever a worry.
Yeah.
But I'm sure that there are parents who may think that if their child takes a year off, that's a very valid concern. But I would just make sure to be communicative with your parents or with your child if a gap year is the route that you're taking. But it's okay to also change plans if it turns out school isn't for you or you want to do something else. But yeah, I would just say be communicative, but that was not really a problem.
Yeah.
Erin, when did you apply to colleges? Did you apply your senior year, last year, or did you apply while you were in your gap year?
Yeah, so I applied almost all early action my senior year. And what I ended up doing is that I deferred my admission for 1 year at the University of Michigan. And so that what that means is that instead of starting the year after you graduate, you push your admission back 1 year. And so instead of starting 2021, I would have started or I start this fall. And so if you are thinking about doing that, a lot of bigger schools will allow you, if you are admitted, to defer for a year for a valid reason. And so the CBYX program was one of the reasons that would have allowed me to defer. And so I think other reasons can be like, I don't know, like any gap year program is a valid reason to defer admission at a bigger university, but it just really depends on the school.
Yeah. Michael, I'm going to put you on the spot. Talk about where you were last year, kind of what you were thinking.
Well, last year I kind of didn't really know what I wanted to do or where I wanted to go or if I even had a shot at getting into the schools that I wanted to. And that's when we actually came to you, and we met once every month, I think,
Mhm.
and we would just go over and kind of nitpick at what my preferences were at colleges or kind of dig down to see what career I would eventually want to choose. And yeah, now we got to the business school and narrowed it all down.
So on that note, because a parent asked this, and I think it's a really great question. They asked, how did you all decide what you wanted to do as a career? Do you all feel like you have a path and you kind of know what you want to study? Can you talk about that a little bit? Like what helped you, like Jasmine, what made you go, yeah, nursing, this is what I want to do? How did you kind of get to that point?
So I really wasn't sure at first if nursing was actually going to be my future career. So my counselor actually recommended me to take Tech Campus, that they actually do a program, like I said, a certified nursing assistant, which actually gives you the basics about what the nursing field would look like. And now that like I'm halfway done like through the program, I'm getting more interested in what a nurse does. And now like I'm deciding that yeah, I think nursing might be my career in the future.
So cool, especially right now. Boy, do we need nurses.
Yeah.
Like, Ben, how did you settle on welding?
So like this time last year, I was going into school through going in for hybrid, taking automotive technology too, I guess, at Vernon Hills. And we were starting to do welding, and I thought it was really cool. So I decided to take one of the night classes that CLC offers to the community for like just a general welding course. And I took it and I realized that I didn't know what specifically in welding I wanted to do. I just kind of knew that welding in general is what I wanted to do. So for a while, there were a few things that I was bouncing back and forth between. I finally landed on pipe welding.
It's amazing. Esther, talk about your process. How did you kind of figure out what you wanted to do?
Well, so right now I'm currently interested in specifically environmental science. And I've always just loved the outdoors generally. And then once I got into high school, I started volunteering at the Independence Grove Native Gardens, and that was just really fun for me. And then my junior year, I took AP Environmental Science, and I had a fun time. And normally with AP classes, it was a bit stressful, but with environmental science, it felt like I could sort of look past that and still enjoy the subject matter.
Isn't there something else that you wanted to find that you want to study in college, if I remember right?
Well, there's a lot of things I want to continue doing. I wanted to study classics just because I've taken Latin at LHS and I've really enjoyed that. I wanted to take Japanese because I lived in Japan for a few years and I've always wanted to work on my language skills so I can go back sometime. And then I want to continue playing the cello. I want to continue fencing. And then there's just a bunch of smaller, more niche interests that I would want to take classes for.
And have you found, since you're our student, I think, who's looking at more smaller colleges, right? Liberal arts and sciences colleges, have you found that the schools you've looked at offer you the opportunity to study all those different things?
Yeah, what I like about liberal arts colleges is that not only do they have really nice programs, but with the smaller class sizes, you can get to know your teachers a lot better. So you have much more of the connection you would have with a high school teacher than you would like a lecture professor who, has 400 students in one hall. And it's like, you're sort of just there and you don't know anyone next to you. But I like the closeness of it, as well as a lot of liberal arts colleges have the sort of thing that they specialize in or that they're really good at. For example, Gettysburg College is really, really good at history, especially American history for obvious reasons, right in the center of the Civil War battle. But and then Dickinson, the other one I'm looking at, although it's very good with history, it also has a really extensive and amazing environmental science program. And so I feel like I could look at a school and it really had exactly what I wanted.
So cool. Layla, talk about biomedical engineering.
So for me, I kind of decided on this because personally, I've always loved science. And then kind of the added layer of applying tech to that, I enjoyed that concept. And since I really love biology, and I've loved biology since I first took it freshman year, but then taking AP Bio, I really discovered that I do love the accelerated course and like the college level, topics that we learn about. So I thought it would be ideal for me to kind of combine the tech part and the medicine interest that I have in doing biomed engineering, and opposed to just studying bio with a pre-med track. So I felt like that would be the best interest for me, especially if I didn't plan on necessarily going to med school right away, or even going to med school at all, but it would have provide me a better base. And so that's why I decided on biomed engineering, and overall I just love the whole idea of it.
Awesome. All right. I'm looking at some of our questions that we're getting from the folks out there, but other things that I wanted to, I think, fit in there as well. When you are thinking about, let me ask you this: when your parents were part of this conversation, tell us more about how they sort of fit into this. Like, what kinds of conversations did you have with your parents about life after high school, and how did they kind of play a part in this? And anybody who wants to go. Suddenly deathly quiet when we got to the parents.
I can go.
Right on.
So I had a lot of talks with my parents. So my dad works as an engineer and he went to Virginia Tech, and then my mom went to William and Mary and she was an attorney. So they always really wanted me to go to college. And then when my sister started the admissions process, she discovered Dickinson College. And so that was the one that she really wanted to go to. And then so I got on the private liberal arts college track. And we did have a lot of conversations about what I wanted, but I always sort of knew that like I wanted to go to a smaller school. And my mom was really helpful with that because she'd already gone through the process with my sister. So it was very streamlined.
That's awesome. Ben, how about you?
I was going to ask Ben too. Ben has a twin sister too, so his parents were doing two processes last year and this year, and so speak to whatever you want to regarding like how your parents helped you or what those conversations looked like.
Yeah, so my sister is going to the University of Northern Michigan. I don't remember what she's majoring in, but my parents were both more so, my parents were helping her with her applications, just since the college application and Common Apps are significantly more extensive than what I had to do. For me, it was more so just like talking to my parents about like, this is what I want to do. This is the school I found, and making sure they were on board with it. Surprisingly enough, my dad was okay with it too, considering that he is a AP science teacher at Vernon Hills. Most people would expect him to push me to go the college route traditionally, but he always advocates to his students that they don't have to go to college to have a good career.
And Ben, I know you had reached out to me sometime during junior year, just like wanting to explore options beyond, 2-year and 4-year schools. Was there a certain point where you were considering doing 2-year or 4 years, or had you always been leaning towards like a more vocational route?
I guess freshman, sophomore, and like halfway through junior year, I was still considering it, like just going to some sort of tech school to get some kind of degree in something. but more so like halfway through junior year when I reached out to you, I was deciding to go to either like some sort of trade school or to just go into like an apprenticeship program in one of the unions in Chicago and go that route instead.
Cool.
All of which are options, right? There's a lot of amazing apprenticeships out there that I think students and parents aren't always aware of. CLC actually offers a wide range of apprenticeships, not just certificate and like 2-year degrees. And then they're through the different unions that we have, the electrical workers, the plumbing, all of that. You can get all different kinds of apprenticeships. It's pretty amazing. Jasmine, how about you? What kinds of conversations did you have with your parents since your first gen, which I think is something we really have to, I'm so glad you shared that because that's a big deal. Just for our audience listening, first generation means that a student's parents did not graduate from a college or university in the United States. So it kind of covers a wide range of families. It could be parents who had not attended or did not graduate from college, or it could be parents that were attending a college or university, graduated in another country, and then moved to the United States. So it's a very wide range, but I'm really glad you shared that. Can you talk a little bit about those conversations you might have had?
So yeah, I'm like a person that like I know what I want to do. So I knew right away that I wanted to go to a community college instead of like a 4-year public university, because I tend to be very close to my family and I really want to like go to a college that's like near me, has like a great a flexible schedule, which I really like that College of Lake County actually gives out. And so, and my parents actually supported me with that decision. They're like, yeah, you can do a community college and then from there transfer to a 4-year public university and just finish your career there. And yeah, that's what my decision has always been since like the beginning weeks of senior year, that this is what I wanted to do. And yeah, my parents have been very supportive of that.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. Did any of you guys talk about like have a conversation about paying for college with your parents? Like did that actually happen in your household? Did you have that? Some of you are like, yep, had it. Others are like, yeah, kind of. It's not something you necessarily have to talk about, but both Mrs. Valito and I really, really encourage families as you're starting this process, have that conversation because there are so many different kinds. Like Erin's doing a program that is paid for by the US government, right? She found an opportunity to have this amazing experience in another country, learning a new language. That's essentially, it's not free per se, but it is, the cost of that is covered. And then you've got all these different ranges of colleges and they are stinking expensive. So how can you approach that? Is that something that plays into your college search? Because if it is, that's something you should know and utilize up front as a way to approach it. So I just wanted to share that with everyone for sure. All right. One of the other things that is kind of interesting is that we have students pursuing different things. Erin, for example, you're going to start at University of Michigan, a big school, right? Layla, give us your top 3, just so we kind of know where you are with that.
It's University of Connecticut, University of Washington, and then University of Illinois Champaign.
Okay, good. So you're looking mostly at bigger schools, right?
Yes.
Astrid, you're looking at smaller liberal arts schools. Jasmine, you're starting out at CLC, which is going to be smaller, right? Michael, you're kind of looking at bigger schools, right? And Ben, yours is going to be probably smaller, would be my guess, right? So can you talk a little bit about that part of it? Like, why did you choose to look at maybe bigger schools versus smaller versus mid-size? You know, what was your thinking process with that? Layla, why don't you go first?
So like I said, I applied to a plethora of schools, and some of them were Some of them were smaller while others were, much larger. In the end, I decided that I did want to have kind of a larger school experience. And overall, UIUC is in Illinois, but I am kind of leaning more to an out-of-state school. And it's because I do want to have that experience of leaving the state, not because I'm like trying to get away from my parents or my family, because I love them dearly, but it's kind of like having that more diverse sense of environment around me. And instead of having this like smaller scale school, even though when you go off to college, you're going to meet a bunch of new people. But I did apply to some mid-sized schools. Like I did apply to Clark and get it, and that was definitely at some point very high on my list. But in the end, I just think that having that larger experience was what I found ideal. But overall, I think it just depends on the person and like the student and what they would want. But I just was more leaning towards the experience and the environment around me, partially also due to the sports and just culture around me. But I did lean forward towards a smaller school at one point due to class size, but I did kind of give that up in the bargain. But I am looking more towards larger schools at this point.
Awesome. Michael, how about you?
I chose a bigger school because I wanted a different social like environment. 'Cause I wanted to like be able to choose from different groups of people and go to Big Ten games and join Greek life. I kind of just wanted the whole college experience and kind of get out of Illinois. Not that Illinois is bad, just something new. And yeah, I think it's just a whole different scene, and it's interesting.
I'm curious, Michael, were you able to visit any places yet? Or Layla too, I guess I'd be curious. I know that it's been tough for your graduating class to have access to campus tours or to even, get on campus. Have you been able to do any visits?
So I've only visited one of the schools that I actually didn't end up applying to.
Okay.
But that was because my brother goes to University of Kentucky, and that was gonna be on my list, but then I ended up ruling it out. But I plan on visiting 3 of my colleges within the next month. But other than that, it's been pretty booked up and hard to do with COVID.
Yes, it's hard to find time for a family, like as a family, to make it happen under normal circumstances. So throw in a pandemic and it's really complicated. So how did you come up with your list? What did you use as like beyond Ms. Belstra? Like how did you know, where did you find information about those colleges?
Well, I kind of used Mrs. Balstra. She recommended probably half of my colleges that I ended up keeping in my final like Big Ten. But I had certain specifics that I was looking for in a college. Like I didn't want to completely void my whole soccer career, so I wanted a place that had club soccer. I wanted somewhere that the Greek life was pretty bigger than average. I always wanted a bigger school just because, again, new friends, new people, all that. And yeah, I feel like it was just kind of specific and it varies from person to person.
Thank you.
Astrid, I want to come back to you because we were talking about sort of size and we have the bigger schools are well represented on the panel, but can you just, you've kind of addressed it in terms of looking at smaller schools, but what made you go, obviously having an older sister who went through the process ahead of you chose that helps, but what made you say this is right for me?
Well, first of all, I just like the feel of a close-knit community more. And the faculty to student ratio is very important for me because I just like to get to know my teachers better. Just so I know that like if I need help on something that I'll be able to go to them and they won't be busy or they won't have time. Also, I grew up in a military family and Illinois is the 9th place I've lived. So for me, like I I've been all over the place. And so I've always kind of wanted just like a smaller community that I can go in and get to really know. Just because I've just been around and experienced so much, I'm sort of ready to just take a step back.
You know, all of you had, because of your choices, you all had an application process, right? Whether, I guess I'm curious if you can talk about whether it was applying for the program in Germany, whether it's applying to a two-year college, four-year college, a trade school. What did you find to be the hardest part of your process when you look back on that, of that application process? They're thinking. I can see them all just.
Okay, I would just say the sheer number of essays that were required, because I had to write all my college essays as well as my gap year program essays at the same time. And so that was really overwhelming. But what I would say is please, please, please start early. I started my Common App personal statement in the summer, which really alleviated a bunch of stress. Because I just had that done when I needed to apply to colleges. And I had a couple of friends who weren't really finished with it until like right before they needed to apply, which is fine, but I knew that it just made them more stressed out. And so I would just say, like, please get your personal statement if possible. Just start working on that and start getting that edited as early as you can, because you also have your senior year, like sports, like just like the stress of life in the fall, and you never know what will happen in the future. So getting it done earlier is the best thing you can do.
Excellent advice. Excellent advice. Jasmine, how about you?
For the application for CLC was actually really easy. There were no essays required in order to enter. It was just basic information. And yeah, that's basically about it.
Ben, was yours a similar process? Was it just kind of filling out some basic stuff and sending it off?
Yeah, so it was just kind of answering like personal info questions, like my name and things like that. And then there were a few questions I had to answer, but I don't think I wrote more than like 4 sentences. I think the whole application took me less than 15 minutes to do.
When did you fill that out? Were you doing it the same time your friends were filling out applications to colleges?
I think so. It was actually probably more before all of them started, just since the school I'm going to doesn't have like a specific start date. I can actually choose the date that I want to start. So I could have started the week after we graduate, but I chose to start later in August. So I still have the summer with my friends.
Michael, how about you? What did you find to be the most difficult part of that process?
The most difficult part for me was probably getting my applications in on time, or like not procrastinating till the very last deadline, which is part of the reason why I actually didn't end up applying to Kentucky. It's because I just barely missed it, and it wasn't like that high on my list, so I was just like, well, it is what it is. Yeah.
And your brother goes there, so was it maybe that was both a sign that maybe you needed to do something different, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. Layla, how about you? What was the hardest part?
I would say the hardest part was like keeping calm through the process. Because it's not like I was stressed about like getting the applications complete. Because it's like I started really, really early because I was so focused on getting it done so that when school did start, I didn't have like a bunch of essays to do. So I did start writing my personal statement and like having potential questions answered when I did submit. So I remember submitting a lot of my like applications in like September, like early September, early October. So when I mean like staying calm, it was the fact that I was expecting my early action decision to be done like December. Like it's the waiting game is probably the biggest thing, because even though it says early action, it may not be early action. You may not be getting a decision till February, March. So I feel like staying calm and collected was the biggest thing for me. because it's all about like everything happens in due time. So just staying like, like you did all that you could and you worked hard. So just leaving it to the process. And I think that's a big thing for a lot of people. So I feel like that was one of the most important things that I needed to do.
So well said. So well said. That's amazing. Astrid, what do you think?
Most difficult part, essays. With the colleges I applied to, essays are a big thing, especially for the scholarships they offer. So both Dickinson and Gettysburg have their big sort of presidential or Eisenhower scholarship, which is where that's like sort of it has the most benefits, but it's also the hardest to get into. And I think by the end of the process, I had written my 650 word personal statement, 2 250 word essays, and then 4 350 word essays, all for those different things. And it was a lot, but I think once you sort of start to get a hang of the prompts and the keywords, like a lot of it's leadership, civic engagement, like once you start to notice those patterns, you can tackle them faster.
Well, and I just have to share, Astrid wrote a most wonderful, beautiful essay. It was almost like your whole life story in your essay. But the hardest part for me was that it was too long and we had to cut all these fabulous, beautiful words. And it was I think that was a journey in and of itself for you to get it to the point where you got it within the word count. So sometimes for some students, they have to flesh it out and really, expand on their essays. And for others, it's cutting it down. So I know I watched that process for you and was just like, oh, this hurts. It really hurts. Somebody asked if you would explain the process for early decision and how that kind of works. So you're kind of our resident expert on that. So give a quick description of that.
So for early decision, it's really just submitting through the Common App by the deadline. I think my original deadline was November 15th for early decision 1, and then January 15th for early decision 2/regular decision. But there is a slightly different process. Usually on the college website, they'll have like a form you'll submit to indicate that you're applying early decision. And by submitting that form, they'll give your application priority, or they might waive the application fee for you. And all that is sometimes they have short answer questions, but it's mostly just like, what's your name, what's your gender, and et cetera, et cetera.
And if you're admitted early decision, what does that mean?
Well, first off, you get your decision sooner, which is the big thing. Also, it does mean that you're committed to that school. So you
Right.
really have to know where you want to go.
Right, exactly. Awesome. Thank you. And somebody else asked, did you choose to include SAT or ACT results? And I think that is something that maybe we can just do a quick go round, because I'd be curious what it was for each of your programs, that if that was something that was required, or if you said, nope, not doing, and you do not need to share scores or anything like that, but just how did you approach that part of the process? Did you choose to submit? Did any of your schools require it? Erin, why don't you start? Because you have kind of both the gap year and Michigan to talk about. So
Yeah. So my year, it was test optional, but I did submit my SAT scores just because I was pretty happy with them and I felt like I worked hard to get there. So I needed to kind of like show for it. But for my gap year program, we did have to submit scores as well. And those are required because it is merit based. And so like your grades and your transcript is a part of the application for that.
okay. I'm just going to go around. Layla, what'd you do?
I did not submit scores, and out of like the 24, I got into like 16 with like 8 still out. I didn't submit personally because when I went to take my test, it was canceled the day of. So I was planning on submitting. It just didn't happen because the test never happened. So it didn't really hurt me at all. So it's not like a big thing that's weighted on submitting, but I didn't personally.
When you didn't submit scores, Layla, did you have other things that you needed to do, or was it just a matter of submitting or not submitting? Did they ask for extra essays or anything like that?
There was one school that had the option to to explain either why you didn't want to submit or not. I chose not to write the essay because it wasn't a top school of mine. It was more of like a safety school, and I still got in without the essay, but it wasn't like most schools actually didn't ask me to say anything because most of them had already decided to go test optional the year prior, and they just kept that same policy. So besides the one school, no other schools asked me for any extra information.
Good. Astrid, what about you?
So 2 of the 3 schools I applied to were test optional, and then the third school was test blind. So for the test optional schools, if you have a really good essay, so I only took the SAT, I did not take the ACT, but if you have a good score on your SAT for a test optional school, I just recommend submitting it because it can help you. It really can. But with the test blind school, then you'd really have to consider like your extracurriculars. But even then, if you are thinking of applying to a school that's test optional or test blind and you're hesitant about taking the SAT or ACT, I would still recommend doing it anyway, just in case. Especially since even with the school that's test blind, they still consider those scores for merit aid. So when it comes to paying for college, that can really, really help you. So
Yeah, some of the schools may be test optional for admission, but not necessarily for scholarship. And it's one of those things it varies so widely from college to college. You just have to check. Really quick, Jasmine, how about you?
I don't remember if they asked for the SAT or the ACT because I submitted my applications during like the first few weeks of August, so I'm not sure.
So we can clarify that for you. CLC does not require test scores. However, they do ask students to take a placement test for English and math, or to submit test scores to waive out of that. So a lot of our students take the placement test just to see how they would do on that. So there you go. Michael, how about you?
So I think most of the colleges I applied to were test optional, but we ended up just submitting all my tests, and I think it worked out. So
It did. Yeah. And Ben, how about you?
So my school, there's no tests requirements. Really, there's no even graduation requirement. Like a lot of the people that go through there are high school dropouts. The guy who founded the school is a high school dropout. The only requirement is that I'm old enough.
Right on. Life is good. Somebody asked, what is test blind? And I think that, Astrid, I really appreciated that you brought that up because not everybody's as familiar with that phrase as they are with test optional. So do you want to take a stab at defining that for people?
So test blind is that they don't consider your scores at all. They may still receive them in your application, but the admission counselors don't look at them. That does not mean that they won't consider them for scholarships, but they would only look at them after you've already been admitted.
Yeah, basically. Actually, one of our state schools here in Illinois, Northern Illinois University, was, correct me if I'm wrong, Becky, but I think they were the first school in the country to say we are officially test blind. So they do not require test scores as part of the process. So kind of
it's a growing trend, right? Like the University of California schools have decided to be test blind, and so it takes some of that guesswork out whether you should send or not send. So yeah.
So again, in light of time, I think we have a couple more questions to ask the panel, but I know that the questions that are being asked by the audience, this is a really good one and it's timely. Would colleges consider senior year grades if their regular application deadline is before the end of first semester senior year? And I think maybe Ms. Bolito and I can address that most quickly, that this is certainly a growing trend among colleges that they do want to see senior year grades. students can certainly apply and then send their first semester senior year grades. That's not unusual at all. We just went through that process at both high schools of sending what we call mid-year grades out to colleges. Some require them. Others ask students to submit them so they can continue to evaluate their application. A number of our students are dealing with deferrals right now, which means that they applied early action, and the college decided not to say no, not to say yes, but instead defer them to the later application pool and give them a decision later in the school year. So often those schools ask to see their mid-year grades as well. So I'm hoping I answered that question satisfactorily.
I think the one thing that I point out is the when seniors are applying to college in the fall, they're obviously they don't have any grades for senior year, but colleges will look at the schedule of courses that seniors are taking, and they'll expect that the students are completing those courses like similarly to how they've completed their previous coursework.
So I guess one of the questions, and some of you have sort of slipped these things in as the evening's gone on, but as you look back again at this last year and kind of what you've gone through, is there either anything you would have done differently or anything that you would really like encourage students and parents to do as they are getting ready to go through this? Just sort of, I guess it's your final parting words of wisdom, anything that you would want to share with folks.
Okay, I can go. I would say my words of wisdom would be like, don't be afraid to like Hail Mary or just like apply for that reschool or that program, even if you don't think you're going to get in. You never know what is going to happen or where you'll be in life in 6 months ahead. And then another thing is that just be willing to work hard. Like I think people a lot of times see the result or like the acceptance or like the scholarship that you receive, but not really the hard work behind it. And so, for example, if there's a scholarship for a $500 scholarship and you have to write an essay, a lot of people would be like put off by the fact that you might have to write a long essay, but the way I have seen it, which is helpful, is that if it takes you 2 hours to write the essay and you end up winning the scholarship, which is $500, you're basically making $250 an hour if you win. So I think having that mindset of like, okay, I can win if I work hard, like there's always a possibility that something could happen in your favor. Just having that mindset is good when you want to apply to scholarships, but it might be very time consuming.
Perfect. We use that analogy all the time, Erin, so that was fabulous. Jasmine, how about you?
So I really hope that next year that anyone who's going to be a senior to apply for any colleges you're interested in attending. And also, if there are scholarships available, apply for them. They're a great resource. They'll help you a ton paying for college, books, classes. It's a great resource.
Yes, and they add up, right? Like $500 plus another $500 is very significant.
Awesome. Layla, how about you?
My recommendation would definitely be to start early, because it's very easy to start early, you know, when you have that free time, or you even like during the summer. I know it's like a break, but that's like the perfect time, especially if you don't have a lot on your plate, because that's what I did. And like looking back at it now, like I would not have time right now. It's like, obviously it's February 1st, but even January, I would not have had the time to apply like regular decision. I would definitely recommend applying a lot like early action. I believe I applied like most of my schools were early action because it's when I had the most time. And honestly, I think it's like when you have the best chances, and even if you do get deferred, you still have that grace period. But if you're applying regular decision, that grace period isn't necessarily there. So I would definitely say like start early, you know, go for it when you have that time instead of trying to do it during crunch time at the end, because then nothing's guaranteed. So I would definitely say like starting early and going even for a reach school potentially.
Good
Excellent.
advice.
Michael, how about you?
My final words of wisdom are that things will always work out for you no matter what, and that there's always something for everyone. And that you may not think you have potential, but there will always be something.
Absolutely. Good. Ben.
I just tell students look into Tech Campus. That I personally don't think that, I don't know how it is for Libertyville, but for Vernon Hills, we don't advertise it enough. If you have the slightest idea of what you want to do, there's tons of programs there. It doesn't matter what you want to do, whether it's vocational or like something that has to do with gaming or IT. I know there's programs there, but look into it if you have any sort of idea.
Totally agree. Tech Campus is amazing. And Astrid, cap it off for us.
For me, it's just don't lock your sights entirely, like keep every door open. There may be that school that you're really intent on going to, but in the chance that you don't get in, just know that there's plenty others out there. And for me, like when I set my sights on that one college, I didn't think there would be anything else for me. And I completely ignored the fact that there was other colleges that had all of the same programs and more, and frankly, even had better opportunities in some cases. So just, keep your options open.
Excellent. Excellent. You guys are amazing. You really are. And I just think it's been just so cool to hear each of your stories and everything. And one of our participants said, do you ever believe it's too late to make a choice on your future? And I think that was a great way to end it, that absolutely not. My gosh. We all have gone through a lot. You guys have gone through a lot just in your high school years. Throw it in as an adult. And I think both Ms. Polito and I would both say we didn't intend to be college counselors when we were in high school. I had no idea that even existed. So, this is the joy of the journey, is kind of figuring out what is right for you. You just have to remain open. Every single one of these guys is doing something amazing, either right now or in the future. And you can have any of those options. You just have to be open to it. Awesome. So on that note, we would just like to tell you that we hope to see you next week at the testing webinar. Let's give these guys major props for helping us out. You guys are all amazing. If you do have questions, who's your resource? Your College Resource Center. So come see us. We are happy to help you out. Any final words, Ms. Polito?
No, I think I just want to thank our panelists. You guys did a phenomenal job and presented so many unique and important viewpoints. So thank you.
Yeah, same. You guys rocked it. All right, everybody, have a great night. And hopefully we won't have a lot of snow in the morning.
Yes. All right. Night, everyone.
Thank you, you guys.